Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to see you here. We've been partnering and working together with Kim Muller and Heather Callahan from CU Innovations, and we've been working towards bringing this program to you and towards bringing a program of partnership, which we've called Translation to Impact. And I'm really excited about it. Sorry, I'm losing my voice because I talk too much on Zoom, but I'm excited at the potential for this, and the excitement that I have is about, the possibilities of bringing some of the things that we find to patients more readily and accelerating change in medicine and patient care. So I'm going to turn things over to Jennifer, but I just want to thank you for being here. I think this is truly an exciting opportunity. She's going to tell you, but I got to say it, that women are far less often asking for patents. Women are far less often innovators, and yet women are very innovative. They just likely to think that their inventions or their ideas are worthy of communication. So we don't want that. And we want our male scientists also to continue and to increase their, contributions in this area. So thanks for joining Translation to Impact. This is our first meeting, so I'm excited to see you all, and I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer, do you want me to go ahead and share the slides?
Yeah, please. So I seem to be having my internet drop out a little bit. So thankfully, Anna is going to share some of our slides with you. And I'm going to be very brief because the meat of the program is really with Heather and Kim. And also, we have two of our researchers that are going to help explain and share some stories as well. So to kick
just
things
to tell
off,
you that if Jennifer drops out, I'll continue. So go ahead.
It's going to be a true tag team event today. So to kick things off, we're calling this facilitating the translation of ideas to impact. As you all have heard me say, and for those who are our more recent researchers have heard me say in our orientation, one of our roles here is to make you all successful. And as we think about taking your ideas and the impact that you all hope to make and look to make, we're here to help. And that's what this program is about, is hopefully will evolve to a service to our researchers. Go ahead, Anna, next slide. So when Kim and Judy and I and Heather have had, as Judy mentioned, have had long and frequent conversations. In fact, we meet on a regular basis around this idea. But it was probably 3 years ago that Judy and I and Kim had met, and other colleagues in the innovations area, that we started just kind of thinking about this premise. You've all heard Judy say, and we all have said, how women and sex and gender differences are understudied, and that impacts the therapies that are available and currently being used to treat women. And it also has implications on the time to diagnosis and the quality of care. It is relatively recent that science recognized the tremendous implications of sex and gender on a disease. Women do make the majority of healthcare decisions and account for a greater portion of the healthcare market and cost. Female researchers are underrepresented. Judy mentioned that earlier. And researchers are often not trained in the skills required for translation and may lack the resources. We know that it's not cheap to go down that path. However, we also recognize, particularly with our mission and vision for women's health research, is we have a strong desire to pursue inventions that may or may not have a commercial application. So this is very much encompassing of all ideas that is worthy of your attention with your research. So we tried to summarize this in somewhat of a formula. There's a research gap, there's a clinical need, and we also know that there's an industry and a patient care opportunity. Next slide. So back when we first started having conversations, we were thinking about what we've heard, and what we've heard pretty consistently through this process of looking into this. We heard that some people never think of themselves as an entrepreneur. They don't want to run a company. They're very much focused on the next question or the next grant. They tried, but they didn't get any traction. They don't know where to begin or who to contact. They don't know if their idea qualifies for this program or any program for that matter. How do they know if their idea is ready, if it's even possible? And the idea involves skills or expertise that they don't have. So we called this kind of the opportunity lost in translation. And while we're thinking pretty aggressively, we thought we could solve all of these issues, we thought it was worthy because of the premise that I previously shared, worthy to try and to look at how we can make a difference in this area for you all. Next slide. So we started coming up with what our vision was. We wanted to bring resources and attention to the understudied areas with significant clinical and commercial opportunities. We wanted to deliver quick turnaround and be responsive to your needs. We wanted to provide ongoing support as well as expert input to advance research ideas to the patient. And we wanted to arm our faculty with the knowledge and make resources available required for translation. So we came up with this graphic, and while it is a circle, we don't think it's necessarily a cycle always. It's more of a timeline. We know that we have an amazing portfolio of researchers within the Ludeman Center, a small group in the scheme of things for the university, but we do have a lot of breadth across the university and a lot of engagement and an amazing culture in working with you all. We also have this great resource in CU Innovations with linkages to external advisors, industry, and an infrastructure that is here to support researchers and their ideas. So we would be looking at different processes, potentially different infrastructure, and also funding to help support this idea. Next slide. But we don't know, and we don't want to define a program without the input and the ideas and the considerations of your needs. So we started with building this partnership so we could learn. We gathered and were able to secure some funding, and we did some visioning. We connected with a few of our researchers who were more interested or have raised their hand and saying, I work in this space. And we wanted to share our vision with you all. And today we are having a two-way informational session with some of our scientists. We do plan on announcing that we will have a scholar program that will hopefully fund 2 scholars beginning in July of 2022. And that work to be able to announce that program is currently underway. Next slide. That's it. I thought I had one on that graphic at the top, Anna. Nate, did we skip past that? That one. Maybe I went too fast. So I want to just talk on this one real quick. This was a part of our visioning and thinking that we wanted to make this part of our regular orientation, potentially part of our trainings, potentially part of different resources that can be made available to you all. We wanted to connect with you all. And then we had ideas of things that might be a possibility. Don't think of these things that we definitely will have in place, and we certainly don't have in place mentor groups, peer groups, or a translation hour, but they're ideas that we have been considering implementing as we learn more from you all. And that truly is then going to be the end. So go to the next slide, Anna, and that was to be the final.
Do we want to take questions now? Or?
Well, the plan, we can, but the thought was to not just hear from what our vision is, but then to hear from 2 of our researchers, Dr. McGinn and Dr. Kao. And I think, Chelsea, we'd love to hear your story because, to be honest, when we started this, we first had a conversation with Chelsea, and then that brought us to more conversations with Kim as well.
I just wanted to clarify one thing is this is an important new program. It's not replacing our other programs, but it is a new program. And, you know, we know that not everyone does this kind of work. So nobody should feel pressured. It's just a great opportunity, which I'm very excited about. So Now I'll shut up.
Does that mean I go next? All right,
Please, Chelsea.
I just have some pretty pictures to go along with what I'm going to tell you. I just wanted to quickly share my experience with innovation and intellectual property because I think it's unique. And in the positions of leadership that we're in, even as junior faculty, I believe that we can mentor people to be thinking about this early on in their careers. So I did 2 internships at Kimberly-Clark Corporation when I was an undergraduate student way too many years ago. But on my very first day at the job, I was handed an invention disclosure and asked to reduce it to practice so that we could file a patent. And those are all very big words that I was not familiar with. But the invention disclosure meant that someone at Kimberly-Clark had a cool idea that they thought should be covered by a patent. And then reducing it to practice meant making a prototype to make sure it was feasible. And then we worked together to file a patent application. So I actually filed 3 patent applications throughout my internship at Kimberly-Clark. And that happened over the course of 2 summers. So I got to participate in that entire process, working with a patent attorney to write the patents and doing all of the work to make sure that these things were feasible to do and collecting the data we needed to prove that our intellectual property was innovative. I spent my time in graduate school working with a mentor who had worked previously in industry. He also filed many patents on his research and spun out a company from his lab. So I spent a lot of time thinking about intellectual property in an academic setting while working for him. I didn't file any of my own patents in graduate school, but I worked a lot in this team that did that and talked about it all the time. So then I ended up, after my postdoc, working at this company that spun out of my PhD research. And so working at this startup company provided many more opportunities for invention. So I was there for about 4 years, and in 4 years, we filed 9 patent applications where I was an inventor. And these are just the US patents. When you add in all of the international patents that were filed, it was nearly 100 patent applications. So I spent a lot of time working on this in depth in industry and have a lot of experience doing it now. So now that I'm an assistant professor, I think about this all the time. And it's hard to balance the needs of academia, publishing, presenting at conferences, trying to get tenure with protecting your intellectual property. I think for us, it means we have to cover our IP earlier than we would like to, maybe before it's ready, because we want to go present it and we need to go present it to keep our jobs. And so that's always something I encourage assistant professors or anyone in academia to do, is to talk to CU Innovations early and often, because they will guide you through this process and keep you from accidentally oversharing this information before you're ready. So yeah, we have over 13 patent applications applied for, and I have 3 patents granted, and 2 of those applications are in collaboration with CU Innovations.
That's great.
I think the advice and the networking that you talked about, this is a new and unknown territory for many people. And I think offering your insights, Chelsea, are very valuable.
Thank you.
Dave, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Let me pull up my thing. There we go. All right, can everybody see my screen? Okay, so I'm going to talk about discovery and transformation in clinical research today. I am generally someone who hates people who put all their titles on cover slides, but I just put these here to emphasize the different arms of work that can lead you to kind of take your research discoveries and use them to transform clinical practice. So Chelsea kind of mentioned just now some of the key components of research and discovery: funding, results, and dissemination, so publications and presentations and all that. The problem is, or the difficulty with that is that there's not a clear path sometimes to how do you actually affect a patient's care in your lifetime, right? So That's what I mean by transformation. So discovery is new knowledge, and transformation is sort of application of new knowledge to do new things. And on that side, the way that I think about it, or at least approach it in my work, is to think about research, which we just talked about, operations, so that's healthcare operations such as UC Health, but other health systems too, and then working with industry for a number of reasons, which I'll go to in a second. But I often tell people I think in the next 20 years, the real innovation is going to come in industry for actually touching patients in terms of improving their care. So I'm just going to summarize advantages and disadvantages of those three things, and then just give you an example of what I do. So starting with operations, you get to touch patients immediately and directly. There's no other way to do that other than through health systems. Depending on how successful your system is, you may have larger funds for specific projects. We have a multi-billion-dollar a year revenue, gross revenue at UC Health, for example. So there tends to be money there. The approval processes are a lot less complicated than, say, NIH study section review or IRBs or all that. And they tend to have a lot of technical expertise in how to bring an idea into the clinic, more so than any academic center is going to be in isolation. The downsides are that projects are prioritized by institutional needs. For example, right now, a bunch of our decision support staff, which are very involved in our research, have been sort of pulled to deal with the crisis standards of care requirements or implementation around COVID. Emails flying back all day today. So when stuff like that happens, your project can get bogged down. Much to us academics' chagrin, implementation can occur without any kind of evidence or review, that you just kind of go for it. I try to be a voice of not doing that, but it does let you move quickly. And your implementation, if you think about it correctly, may be shareable or usable at other health systems, which is a very different thing, a very difficult thing to pull off in primary research. Industry strengths, one of the greatest is fast and nimble. They tend to work, they have to work quickly out of necessity to stay afloat. Depending on the partner you have, they can't have lots of venture capital funding or parent company funding. They can bring expertise that we don't have access to. So as I'm working with a company now, their initial architect was the guy who built YouTube's database. So that's not something you could hire right in CU. And then at the end of the day, there is potential for profit and royalties. That's something we work with Kim and CU Innovations a lot. It's sort of a different model for me than a straight intellectual property model, because it's more like service and know-how than specific classic patentable knowledge. But nevertheless, there's a lot of potential there. Weaknesses are that they are beholden to shareholders. So if, for example, if you're really into clinical care transformation and your shareholders are more into making money from big pharma, you're sort of at a crossroads there. You have to make a choice. Company failure is always possible. It is very awkward when you've invested a few years into something, they fail, and it all just goes away. It's just gone. You can't use it anymore. I've unfortunately had that experience too. So you have to be thoughtful about that. But that's the risk-reward thing. And a lot of industry may have great engineering, great tech expertise, and not that much in the way of robust scientific design and interpretation and that kind of thing. So, so you just have to be very cautious about where ideas are coming from. Fortunately, we can inject a lot of help, a lot of experience there. Takeaways for these three components. So discovery and research, I think we all know that pretty well. You come up with new things that never known before, right? And could approach patient care to really, really improve quality and length of life. Downside, they take forever in a classic model for that knowledge to reach a patient in, say, a primary care clinic. So I put it on the order of years to decades. The classic number is about 17 years. And so in your professional lifetime, you may never see it. Health systems are fast and directly impactful to patients today. The way that their sort of development cycles work, you can usually get things into providers' hands within months to maybe a year or two. So a lot quicker, though still takes some time. You're constrained by these institutional priorities. Industry is very fast. You can develop software within a few weeks to months. Lots of money and fun experts, but they can't touch patients directly ever, and their scientific background is inconsistent. So they, in this kind of space, they really need partners like us. But if you put them all together, you can rapidly deliver cutting-edge technology and knowledge to large populations of patients in a way that you can't with any one of those pieces. Oops. So just so this is kind of a busy slide, but just to round it out, my work is in sort of machine learning and predictive modeling of heart failure. I've done that a lot in, my primary research is that using secondary analyses, clinical trial data, all kinds of observational data. So I put research at the top, the schools that we have on campus, medicine, pharmacy, nursing. I left out dentistry. Dentistry can be there too. So if you have knowledge or technology, I should say, you can kind of go two ways. You can implement it directly into UC Health, electronic health record. That's the way that I go. So that's operations, clinical operations. Or you can go by way of commercial software. At least that's what I do. So product development with an industry partner, sort of facilitated and actually critically facilitated by CU Innovations. That stuff doesn't work otherwise. But you can develop a platform very quickly that can then be used by UC Health, for example, in implementation. And maybe more exciting is that you can commercialize that so it can be a product that other systems use, tens, hundreds, thousands of systems. So if you think about this whole process, you can really actually envision it happening within about 3 to 5 years to reach hospitals outside your system on a pretty large scale. And all these things are happening at UC Health right now and are available to anyone, any of our researchers. I just encourage you to think about those 3 main pillars. If you do that, you can really make an impact that you get to see quickly. So I will stop there.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Chelsea and David. Wonderful presentations. And to everyone sitting there listening on the faculty, we are not advocating for you to leave academia and take up careers elsewhere, being very clear, but we are advocating that if you have this kind of thinking, you can broaden your academic career and maybe bring things more quickly, treatments more quickly to our patients, which is a goal since we want to change women's health. So
yeah, absolutely.
Transferring to Kim and Heather, and I guess we'll have discussion at the end. Is that the plan? Okay. So exciting. Okay. Kim, thanks. And Heather, thanks so much for coming today.
Happy to do it. Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And thank you to Chelsea and Dave. I think they did such an outstanding job of just pointing out the different ways that faculty can think about protecting their work through IP and opportunities that are available through the hospital. So what Heather and I are here to do today is to give you a little bit of some overview of the resources that are available and some examples of how to bring your ideas to patients. Next slide, Anna.
Yes, so Kim, I'm having a little bit of a lag on my end. So if I skip over a slide, please just tell me to go back, okay?
Sure. So just very briefly, I think as Judy and Jennifer both pointed out, our mission at the university is really to help faculty get their ideas to patients. This says a lot of words on this slide, but at the very core of what our mission is to stand in the middle of faculty and industry to make sure that we get our best ideas to a place where they can impact patients. Next slide. Oh, skipped a few. Okay, so what I thought we'd start with is just some examples to make this come to life. So the first case study that I wanted to talk to you about was Dr. Wheatus. Dr. Wheatus is a physician scientist. She's a radiation oncologist studying KRAS. In the course of her research, she identifies a novel KRAS mutation, and it's found in 20% of lung cancer patients. A majority of the people who got lung cancer had the variant, and a lot of them were women. And then interesting, they also went on to get other cancers. So she makes this finding. It seems like it's an interesting scientific finding. She goes on, she publishes it, and then she goes on and gets some additional grants and does some more work. And she finds that 20 to 25% of women with ovarian or triple negative breast cancer also have this mutation. So again, this looks like our, very standard but very important academic research. We take this research, we publish it. And then the question was for Dr. Wheatus was, what's next? What is she going to do next? She had a choice, right? She published all of this work. It was in very high impact journals. And she could have just moved on and said, okay, I'm going to go get my next grant. But in fact, that's not the path that she took. She was an associate professor at Yale at the time. And next slide. What she decided to do with these findings, which seemed very traditional in scope, was she actually decided to start a diagnostic company. She said, I could put this in the journal, but her real passion was to make sure that it got to patients. And she felt like if she didn't take that initiative to figure out how to get it to patients, it may never get to patients. And so what we did was we went through a series where we patented the findings, and we went on to raise $3 million, so not a lot of money, to start a diagnostic company. It turned out that Dr. Wheatus was the first female faculty in Yale's history that we worked with to get her idea to market. And this was only 10, 12 years ago. So really astonishing to think that she was the first. And now, because she decided to take that initiative, figure out how to patent things, as Chelsea was talking about with us, we helped her raise money. She now has 15 products that resulted from her research. She had over 230 million in revenue last year. And most importantly, she's helped millions of patients worldwide. And so the reason why I wanted to share this story with everybody today is because I thought it was a real classic example of when we saw this on a piece of paper, you identified a SNP that was predictive of risk. Really, that doesn't really smack as the kind of thing that we would quote unquote commercialize, but yet it in fact was. And with some dedication and resources and putting pieces together, it turned out to be a platform that was very, very impactful for patients. So that's one example that I wanted to share with you. The next case study that we're going to go to, this is more on the lines of what Dave was telling us about. And so this is just an example of where a researcher makes a finding. In this case, this is the classic, I just stole the classic Ambien example that we all know, where the research found that 90% of women who took Ambien actually had severe side effects. But if you cut that dosage in half, those side effects went away. And so again, we publish those findings, we put them in journals, we talk about them at meetings. But as Dave was articulating, how do we get them to patients? And so next slide. And so just as an example, one of the platforms that Dave and his colleagues at UC Health has started is a company called Agile MD. Agile MD is clinical decision support that's been instituted across the university. And this is an opportunity for us to take some of our research findings, deploy it at the point of care study those impact and study the impact and then scale that nationally. And I think Dave, I'm not going to belabor this point because I think Dave really articulated it well, but here you have a research finding. We can work with UC Health to get it to the point of care and then scale it through companies like Agile MD, where they're in 130 hospitals, 40,000 healthcare providers use it. And so to Dave's point, this is an avenue to get our research to patients in a very, very scalable way, in a very quick, expedited path, not in a generation, but in a matter of years. And so I want to just set the stage with those two examples, just to give you some context, and now turn it over to Heather to talk about some of the details and some of the resources that we have available to try and help for people who are interested in this space. So Heather, over to you.
Thanks, Kim. As Kim said, the idea now is to dive a little bit deeper into some of the ways that CU Innovations can help faculty in all different ways. And I think one of the main purposes of this is to go along with what Kim has said, Dave said, Chelsea said, and really make it clear that it's not just about a patentable invention. Those are great. We still have licensing. We still take them in. We'll still patent them, do licensing either to industry or to startups. But the CU Innovations has been expanded much beyond that. We have a strong team around business development. They go out and they meet with industry. They understand what industry's needs are. Maybe those needs are to come to campus and test their products in clinical trials, whether those are digital health products or new therapeutics or anything along the spectrum. We have a team that is focused around ventures. So if you as a faculty member are interested in starting a company, whether or not it's around patentable technology, it could be around software, it could be around care pathways. We have a ventures team that will work with you and work through the whole concept of how do you start a company? What does that look like? And an investments team that can then help pair you with investors out there, either angel investors or VCs, depending on what the technology is and what the needs you may have as a startup. And finally, we have a pillar that's all about operations, and they're fundamental to our success, underlying all of these processes to make us able to give these partner these programs with you and with industry. And I'm going to kind of break protocol and just say, if you have questions as we go through, please feel free to ask them. I would rather this be interactive. I want to be speaking to things that are important to you. But unless I see a question, I'll keep going and say, so part of what we've been really focusing on in CU Innovations and think is important to share holistically is that we're looking both at ideas that come from internal, and that means to us the CU Anschutz campus, any of you, whether you're working as clinicians, researchers, any aspect of your work. Ideas that come in, they funnel through, they can come to CU Innovations, whether they're patentable or not, whether they're very early, as Chelsea mentioned, come early, come often, or as Dave mentioned, something that's never going to be patented. Those can come into CU Innovations, and then we have systems where we now reach out to all the different pillars and say, how can this be helped? How can we support this? What are the resources you need? Is it connection through Kim to care, to UC Health? What is it? And we make sure that you're getting that kind of support. Equally, as I mentioned with the business development team, there's a lot of outreach going on to industry so that we're actively bringing industry partners to campus to be able to meet the needs of our patients, to bring new things that industry is developing and can develop faster here, but also to partner with researchers who need, sponsored research to study something that's eventually going to be a drug, as just an example. Next slide, please. So, and one of the things that that has been really built out strongly in CU Innovations, as we've heard from everybody, that one of the fundamental things is that NIH grants do not support all of this research that's needed to bring things to to help patients, to improve the healthcare industry. And so systematically, funding mechanisms have been put in place to fill those gaps that aren't being met through typical federal grant funding mechanisms. This includes Spark Reach, a campus-wide effort for helping inventions be translated to products. GrubStake, similar to Spark Reach, but focused around regenerative medicine. DigiSpark is brand new, and it's focused around clinical validation coming from industry into campus for digital health solutions. The CDI fund, again, it's where there's a milestone that could be met with additional funding focused in that area. And then finally, the CU Healthcare Innovation Fund. And I'll ask Kim to talk about that in a slide later on, so she can go into more depth in that area. But the take-home message here is there are a lot of different funding mechanisms. That probably sounds good and also overwhelming. Feel free to reach out to CU Innovations, and we can help you figure out, is there one that's right for you and can make a difference with what you're trying to develop. Next slide, please. So to go a little deeper into Spark Reach, just because I think this is one that has such potential across campus. This is an accelerated program. It's a development that came out of Stanford and has been further developed here. The funding is individual. It's up to $200,000, but probably the most important pieces are mentorship and education. And we can talk about that more later, but the education is around all of the different business aspects, whether it's financial, how to start a company, what does product development look like, how far, what are the regulatory paths that you might face developing your product further. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to ask Kim, do you want to speak on this one?
Yeah, sure. And so I think that the funding mechanisms that Heather went through, I think a lot of people don't know about those on campus. I think it's kind of somewhat of a secret, but what we hope to do in partnership with Judy is to make those funding opportunities much more readily available to faculty. Unlike the grant programs, they're very quick. If you apply, there's a one-sheet application and we can give you that answer to get $200,000, $350,000 to advance your ideas very quickly. So just something to put on your radar. And for those of you who are more advanced, I think Chelsea talked about some of her technologies, which are starting to really mature into areas where they can get external funding. We started a $50 million early stage fund to fund faculty ideas that are ready to be spun out into companies. And so we have a $50 million early stage fund. And then through UC Health, we partner with them with a $100 million growth stage fund. So think about NIH funding. Then we have translational funds at the university to help you get ideas to patients. And then when it's ready to spin out, we can help you with the first dollars in your startup. And so this is a brand new initiative that just started a year ago.
Great, thanks, Kim. Next slide, please. So this is just to kind of give you a summary overall of all the different kinds of deals that happen through CU Innovations, from the traditional licensing around patents to venture, as Kim just talked about with the fund, to digital health, part of DigiSpark, for example. But in many cases, bringing the industry is always, especially in the digital health space, interested in testing their new platforms out using our resources. R&D, bringing industry to campus who would be able to do sponsored research into your labs to develop more products or therapeutics or whatever they're interested in, and then bringing clinical trials to campus, again, so that our patients are able to do the very first treatments that aren't available elsewhere. Yes, please, next slide. So this is just a quick one, and this touches a little bit on what Jennifer spoke to earlier. Doreen Molk, one of the case managers at CU Innovations, has been working in the area of diversity, equity, inclusion, doing research for over a year now. She's our director in this area. And one of the things that she discovered, and this goes along with what Jennifer and Judy talked about, is that the representation of women in innovation is not equal to their representation across campus. So inventors are only 33%. Founders of startups, it's only 20%. And we all know that, and there's been a lot of publications out lately showing that the stronger, better businesses actually have a mix, women and men working together to achieve goals. So Doreen applied for an SBA award and received it. And over this next year, one of our focuses, hopefully with the intent to work with this group, is around how do we increase the participation of women in innovation and really be able to support them in the ways that they need. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kim, who's largely overseen the incredible success of CU Innovations over the last 5 years.
Great, thanks, Heather. Yeah, I'm not going to belabor this point, but a lot of people have the question of, can we actually get things to patients? And so Chancellor Elliman and Dean Riley asked us to put together essentially just a snapshot for faculty of the past 5 years. We started this initiative, CU Innovations, 5 years ago. And the real main point of this slide is faculty on this campus have amazing ideas to help patients. The faculty startups in 5 years have raised $657 million in follow-on funding. And so what that tells me is our ideas are very ripe to get to patients. And through all the resources that the Chancellor and the Dean and others have made available, we have a real opportunity to differentiate our programs here. Next slide. And one of the things through Judy and Jennifer that we're going to start tracking through some lessons that we've learned through working with this group is really looking at patient impact of our work. It's not just all about the numbers. It's what are we doing to help patients? And this is just a snapshot of some of the work your colleagues have done on campus. We developed the Shingrix vaccine that we hear about. We've prevented 5.3 million cases of Shingrix. We've prevented 133,000 hospitalizations, 533 lives saved. Dr. Malik Kahuk in ophthalmology, he's helped over 4.5 million patients with his technology for glaucoma. And Dr. Shilong Liu started Summit Biolabs just last year and has already helped 120,000 Coloradans. So there's a real, I think our research is here. There's a real innovation and entrepreneurship culture that we're trying to cultivate here. And I think we can do a lot of good with patients and couldn't be more excited about working with faculty here to think about how do we take that early stage important research that we're developing here to improve the lives of women. And how do we make sure that that gets to patients in a maximal, in the most efficient, effective way?
Thanks, Kim.
It's really exciting. I developed a questionnaire about 20 years ago. It's a little questionnaire about walking ability and peripheral artery disease. And that questionnaire is now the most widely used questionnaire in walking ability and peripheral artery disease in the world. So, and it's managed by CU Innovations, it's intellectual property. So when I realized I had intellectual property, I was excited, and it doesn't have to be as high tech as vessels for pulmonary arterial hypertension. So it can be simple, it can be more complicated. There's just so many possibilities, and it can be a company. But it is exciting, and we think it's important for you to have this opportunity. So I can't thank Kim and Heather enough for taking the time to come talk to us, not to mention Dave and Chelsea. So do we want to, now can we have discussion? Okay. Any questions?
Please.
I have a question.
And I didn't mean to shut down the discussion earlier. I just wanted to make sure there was
okay.
time to get through all of this wonderful information for you all. So yes, I think there was a question.
I'm teasing, Jennifer. I think it's been an amazing presentation. Noi, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question because this topic, one, I appreciate the Lundman Center putting this together because this is actually a really timely topic for me, and that I've been thinking a lot about industries and how an academic and industry partnerships over the last few weeks. one challenge that I am encountering, or I guess maybe I haven't reached it yet, but I anticipate encountering is, I'm a clinical health psychologist by training. There are a lot of mental health apps out there. There are a lot of programs for weight management, behavioral change. I'm testing out one right now just to see what that's like. And it's very similar to my current K-12 project. So I'm curious, and how do you help researchers either partner with other industries that's kind of already has your parts of your ideas out there, or make your idea a little bit more nuanced so that it can be marketable and competitive?
Yeah, such a great question. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about your work that you're doing with the company, and then I'll answer the question directly from a resource perspective?
Yeah, I think that it can be a little bit challenging. One thing to take advantage of is, depending on a start, like if say you're working with a startup, which I think is where a lot of the novel stuff is coming from. They have often done a lot of due diligence about the marketplace and what is out there, what those things can do as part of their initial funding or their second funding cycle, in order to say, this is why our thing is different and you should give us $20 million. So if you talk to a few of those and kind of say, well, this is what I do, this is really what my focus is, this is what I want to achieve with my research, you can kind of see where it fits in or how it can be delivered through that. But I would take advantage of that due diligence thing, because otherwise I know I can't survey the marketplace effectively, but when there's $100 million involved, they will do that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And, I think that this is one of the advantages of, so I think you asked such a wonderful question, because I think all too often we have our grants and they're overlapping with things that are happening in industry. And so an old school way of looking at it would be, somebody else is already doing it. Hands off, I'll just keep doing my research and that's it. But what we've come to realize with partners like Dave and others on campus, another approach, which actually helps your academic research, is to partner with those companies that are doing it. They'll help fund your lab because it then gives their platform more benefit. And then your research is actually getting to patients in a quicker way. So for you, it creates new funding opportunities. You get your work to patients instead of just saying hands up. And it's creating a circular funnel where the more you do with industry, the more grants you're getting and the more competitive you're able to be with those grants. So we see it absolutely as a virtuous cycle. And to the extent that you want help thinking about what are some key partners, negotiating deals that can get funding for your lab, we're happy to help with all of that. And that's how we've tried to close the loop instead of just saying, nope, somebody else is doing it. That's actually an amazing opportunity for partnership.
Yeah, great. Thank you. You'll definitely be hearing from me. So.
Wonderful. No, look forward to it. And that was such a great question. Thank you.
I see some of you here. I think, I know some of your ideas about innovation. I know those things for some of you, but, feel free to ask and also feel free to ask after.
Oh, I see Carrie has her hand up. Carrie?
Yeah, hi. I just started partnering, maybe partnering is the wrong word, with a company that has a new device that got FDA approval for advertising for treatment for nightmares for PTSD. And I put in a grant application with NIH for an R21. It's favorably reviewed, so we're just waiting to hear on when it will be funded. And then Neil Epperson suggested that I talk with Innovations, but my question is, how do you, if they already have a patent on this, it's not like something I could develop. I mean, can I develop it further? They're looking at it from like a treatment of nightmares and overall improvement in quality of life, but I'm thinking of it more broader given my interest in cardiovascular disease and knowing that individuals who suffer from PTSD or just any nightmare sleep disorders have a greater risk for cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. So that's where I would be interested in seeing it improve those types of health outcomes. Is this something that Innovations could help with, or is it, you know, different because they probably already have a patent on this device? I'm assuming if they have FDA approval.
Yeah, Carrie, such a great question. I think that well, to answer your first question, absolutely. The second, the fact that they have a patent, again, I think we oftentimes find our industry partners have parts and things that we're doing in academia. I think the opportunity for you is to build out those secondary alternative platforms, ideas, adding on to their original idea. They don't have the same insight that you have.
No.
And I think that's the partnering opportunity, because there could be opportunity for you to generate additional IP for them that helps them get to patients. Obviously, you benefit from that. Your lab benefits from that. And it's funding opportunities. If they like the idea and think that, yes, that is where the direction of their company is going, much like the question we had previously, they're very open to providing funding to help you build that out and then being your partner to get it to patients. So that's something that we do through our business development arm, and happy to help you with those conversations, how to position it, and if they're interested, how to help paper that deal so that you get what you need for your lab and your research. And there's a good partnership there that's symbiotic.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I know they're a very, very, very small company. They're trying to get into clinics and have asked me to put them in contact. And I'm like, I know nobody. So, but you know, they've been doing some partnerships with the VA in Minneapolis. They haven't talked to anybody here, with the exception of myself. And I found them just because I read, you know, the headline about this device, and I have this interest, and so that's kind of like how it formed. But maybe I can reach out to your office or reach out to you, Kim, or whoever would be most appropriate, and we could have further discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. And we're working really closely with Neil. I think that that whole space is so important right now and is moving so quickly because of all the mental health crises that we have. And PTSD obviously is such a huge part of that. So yeah, I'm absolutely happy to help you. You can reach out to me directly, Carrie. I work a lot in this space myself.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Happy to help.
Also, Kim, and Carrie, let us know. We will turn you loose on, you know, on the process, but let us know when things happen. The center is taking a role in this space and would really like to know, you know, how many people maybe today who are hearing this go try to initiate a relationship. So just helps us to know if our programs are effective.
Yeah, and thank you to Judy and Jennifer. I mean, I think that it was really their creativity about thinking outside the box and how we could help researchers within the center that gave us some of these ideas to expand, and we hope to have more. So thank you for giving us all this opportunity to be creative together.
I see people thinking hard about, you know, with the ideas. Carrie asked, do I want her to CC us on conversation? Just provide us with updates. Just let us know what happened. I don't know. What do you think, Jennifer?
Well, I think what we'll do is we have a Google Doc where we're kind of tracking the connections that we make, and we'll add whatever to this. And I say we, meaning Heather and I and Anna and Kim and Judy will all actively communicate via our Google Doc to kind of see where things are. And, you know, we want this to be something that will grow into meeting your all needs. So the more interaction we have at this stage, probably the better, but I don't think we need to be CC'd on all the emails. I do want to mention, since I've heard, and Carrie, you even mentioned like you don't know who to call, please obviously follow up with Kim, but also Heather has become kind of one of our key contacts for the Ludeman Center. And we'll put it in the chat, you know, Heather's email and what the best way, actually Anna just did, as far as what to contact her for versus myself or Anna. But we, again, feel that this whole thing is going to be beneficial to you all if we hear what you all think about it. So please reach out if there's other thoughts that you all have too.
Well, thank you, everybody. This was great. I really appreciate your coming today. And I really thank you to Kim and Heather and to Dave and Chelsea. It's been tremendous, and it's just the beginning. So verbal applause.
And I
And-
think
I'm sorry.
Anna was going to have some closing remarks too.
Oh, sorry, Anna.
Oh, no worries. I just want to echo Judy's thanks. So thank you for all coming, and thank you especially for our speakers for sharing your stories. And I just had a few closing things to follow up on. So we would really appreciate your feedback. I dropped a link into the chat for our training survey. So please take a couple of minutes and fill that out so that we can improve future offerings. This session was recorded, so we will post that to our website next week. So if you'd like to rewatch it or share it with someone, that will be available at that point. And I'd like to put in a plug for next month's training. It will be on December 10th, which is a Friday, from 9 to 10:30 with John Rice, and he'll be speaking about how to get the most out of your collaboration with a biostatistician. So we hope to see you then. And if there aren't any other questions, have a great day.